Can we eat the leftovers off your plates? The old woman didn't look up when she said it. Her voice barely carried across the dinner, thin and careful, like she was afraid the words themselves might offend someone. The room went still. 11 men in worn leather vests froze mid-bite. At the center of them, a broad-shouldered man with a gray beard turned slowly in his chair. He had seen violence, he had seen fear, but this quiet kind of hunger, this hit somewhere deeper. Behind her, 2 grown adults stood near the window, pretending not to watch. The man at the table leaned forward. Welcome to today's story. If you enjoy emotional drama and shocking twists, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And before we begin, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. 20 minutes earlier, the diner had been just another stop on a long road. Pearls sat off a quiet stretch of highway north of Bakersfield, the kind of place truckers knew by instinct and locals never bothered to describe. Gravel lot, flickering neon, coffee that tasted the same no matter the day. Nothing about it invited attention until the bikes rolled in. They came in low and steady, engines cutting through the still afternoon air, 11 of them. Black leather, no wasted motion. They parked in a loose line like they'd done it 1,000 times before and stepped inside one by one without a word. Conversations dropped. The bell over the door rang once, then again, then silence. Big Hollis walked in last. He didn't rush, didn't scan the room, didn't need to. 6'4", thick shoulders, gray beard cut square. He carried the kind of presence that didn't ask for space, it took it. He moved straight to the long table in the back and sat down at the head like it had always belonged to him. The others followed, filling the seats with quiet precision. No one laughed, no one joked. Even their silence felt deliberate. The waitress approached with a notepad and unsteady hands. Hollis ordered without looking at the menu. Steaks, eggs, coffee, enough for everyone. His voice stayed low, calm. It always did. Men leaned in to hear him, not the other way around. The food came fast, plates heavy, steam rising. For a moment it was just another meal. Then the door opened again. No one noticed at first, not until the draft moved across the floor. She stepped inside slowly, like the air itself might push her back out, small. Gray coat too thin for the season, shoes worn down at the edges. She didn't look at anyone, just made her way to the counter and sat. Hands folded in her lap, still. The waitress hesitated, then walked over. "Can I get you something, Mom?" The woman shook her head. The waitress leaned closer, said something softer, another shake of the head, this time tighter. Hollis watched it happen without turning his head fully, just enough to catch the movement, the way her fingers pressed into her coat, the way she kept her eyes down. He filed it. He always filed the small things. At the table, forks moved, coffee poured. The men ate like they'd been on the road all day. But Hollis didn't take more than a few bites. Something didn't sit right. He turned slightly in his chair. The woman was still there, same position, same stillness, and then he noticed the window. 2 figures stood outside just beyond the glass. A young man, early 20s maybe, shoulders hunched, like he didn't want to take up space. Beside him, a young woman about the same age, arms wrapped around herself. They weren't talking, just watching, not boldly, carefully. Like they already expected to be told to leave. Hollis looked at them, then back at the woman, then back at them again. The boy shifted his weight. The girl looked down. Neither of them stepped inside. Hollis leaned back in his chair. Something pulled at him. Not loud, not urgent, just familiar. For a second, the diner faded, and he was somewhere else. A long time ago. A roadside stop, cheap coffee, empty pockets. His mother sitting across from him, pretending she wasn't hungry so he could finish what little they had. He blinked. The diner came back, the plates, the noise, the woman at the counter. He set his fork down. Around the table, the others noticed. Subtle, immediate, a shift in posture, a glance. No one asked questions. They didn't need to. When Hollis moved, things happened. He stood. Chairs creaked softly as a few of the men straightened, not rising yet, just ready. The waitress froze near the kitchen window. The diner owner stepped out from the back, wiping his hands on an apron, watching. Hollis didn't look at any of them. He walked across the room, slow and steady, until he stood just behind the woman at the counter. He didn't touch her, didn't speak right away, just waited. It took a second, then another. She felt him. Her shoulders tightened. She turned slowly, as if bracing for something she already believed she deserved. Up close, she looked smaller, late 70s maybe, eyes pale and tired, a thin gold chain around her neck with a wedding band hanging from it. She tried to smile. It didn't quite happen. Hollis lowered himself down onto one knee so they were eye level. The entire diner held its breath. "What's your name, Mom?" he asked quietly. She swallowed. "Edith." He nodded once. "Those two outside, they with you?" Her eyes flicked toward the window, then back to him. "My granddaughter," she said softly, though both were clearly grown. They didn't want to come in. Hollis followed her glance. They were still there, waiting, hungry, trying not to be seen. He looked back at her. "What were you about to ask the waitress?" She didn't answer, not at first. Her hands tightened in her lap, her lips pressed together. He didn't rush her, didn't fill the silence. Finally, she spoke and the words barely made it out. "Can we eat the leftovers off your plates?" No one moved. For a second, it felt like the entire diner had forgotten how. The words hung there, thin and fragile, like they might break if anyone touched them too quickly. "Can we eat the leftovers off your plates?" Edith's eyes stayed low. Her hands were still locked together in her lap, knuckles pale beneath the thin skin. She didn't look at Hollis, didn't look at the table behind him. She just waited, like she had already decided what the answer would be. Behind the glass, Caleb shifted his weight. He glanced at Nora, then away again. Neither of them came inside. Hollis didn't answer right away. He studied her. Not her coat, not her shoes, not the obvious things, her posture. The way she held herself small, like she had been doing it for a long time. The way she asked the question without anger, without demand, just quiet surrender. Something in his chest tightened. He exhaled once, slow. Then he spoke. "No, Mom." The words landed hard. Edith flinched, just barely. It was small, almost invisible, but Hollis saw it. He saw the way her shoulders dipped half an inch, like something inside her had already started folding in on itself. Behind him, a chair scraped softly as one of the men shifted. Hollis rose to his full height. "You will not be eating leftovers." Now the room reacted. The waitress froze mid-step. The diner owner straightened near the kitchen door. At the table, every man in leather had gone still, waiting. Edith nodded, once. Of course not." She started to turn back toward the counter, already retreating into that same small shape she had carried in with her. Hollis stepped back. Then he turned toward the long table. He walked to the empty chair at his right, the one no one ever took unless they were invited, and pulled it out. The sound cut through the silence. He looked back at her. "Come sit down," he said. "Bring your people in too." Edith didn't move. For a moment, it was like she didn't understand the words. Or maybe she understood them too well and didn't trust them. I don't want to be a problem," she said quietly. "You're not," Hollis replied. His voice didn't rise, but it carried. "Not today." Caleb pressed his hand against the glass, unsure. Nora shook her head slightly, like she was telling him not to risk it. Hollis walked past Edith, pushed the door open himself, and stepped out onto the gravel. Up close, the difference was clearer. Caleb looked older than his years, worn down in a way that had nothing to do with age. Nora kept her arms crossed, guarded, eyes sharp with the kind of caution that didn't come from one bad day. "You two coming in," Hollis said. "It wasn't a question." Caleb hesitated. "We don't have money." Hollis held his gaze. "Good thing I didn't ask for it." Nora narrowed her eyes. "What's the catch?" A corner of Hollis's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Eat first, figure the rest out later." They exchanged a look, a long one. Then Caleb nodded, just once. They followed him inside. Every eye in the diner tracked them as they crossed the room. The kind of silence that wasn't empty, but heavy with attention. Hollis pulled the chair out for Edith himself. She sat slowly, like she expected someone to stop her halfway. Caleb and Nora took the seats beside her, stiff, unsure where to put their hands, their eyes, their pride. The waitress was already moving. No one told her what to bring. She just knew. Plates came out fast, hot. Real food, not scraps, eggs, steak, coffee. Edith stared at it like it might disappear if she blinked. "Go ahead," Hollis said. She didn't move, not at first. Then she reached for the fork. Her hand trembled. She took one bite, closed her eyes. And something in her face broke open. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, the way something does when it's been held together too long. Caleb picked up his fork next, slower. Nora followed a second later, still watching the room like it might turn on them. It didn't. The men at the table went back to eating, but differently now. Slower, quieter. A few of them slid plates without saying a word. One pushed a coffee cup towards Nora. Another set down a piece of toast near Caleb's elbow. No one made a show of it. No one made them feel like guests. Just space, time, respect. Hollis sat down across from Edith. He didn't watch her eat, didn't make it uncomfortable. He picked up his own fork, cut into his steak, and let the moments settle into something that didn't need explaining. But his eyes kept moving. They always did. He watched Caleb's hands. Rough, calloused, not from steady work, but from too many short-term jobs. Too many things that didn't last. He watched Nora's posture, defensive, tired, ready to leave at the first sign of trouble. He watched Edith, the way she tried to slow herself down after the first few bites, the way she forced herself to chew carefully, like she didn't want anyone to think she was starving, which told him everything. Across the room, Marvin Pell leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching. Not angry. Not yet, just calculating. Hollis filed that too. After a few minutes, Edith lowered her fork. She looked at Hollis, eyes still wet. "Thank you," she said. He shook his head slightly. "Eat first, Mom." She nodded, but she didn't go back to the food right away. Instead, she reached into her coat pocket. Slowly, carefully, she pulled out a folded piece of paper. Worn, creased, handled too many times. She set it on the table between them. I wasn't always like this," she said softly. Hollis didn't touch the paper. "Tell me what happened," he said. Edith glanced at Caleb and Nora. They both looked away. Then she pushed the paper toward him. Hollis picked it up, unfolded it. And the moment his eyes landed on the words, the room seemed to shift. A foreclosure notice, final warning, 30 days. Property seized pending transfer. He read the name twice, then a third time. Someone else's. Someone who now legally controlled everything she had left. Hollis's jaw tightened. Just a fraction. He folded the paper back up, set it down. And for the first time since he walked into that diner, his eyes went cold. Behind him, one of his men leaned in slightly. "Boss," he murmured. Hollis didn't look away from Edith. "Yeah," he said quietly. Then, just loud enough for his table to hear, "Find out who did this." Cap didn't ask questions. He never did, not when Hollis used that tone. He pushed his chair back slow, like nothing had changed, like this was just another meal on another road. But his eyes had already shifted. Sharp, focused. The way they got when something underneath the surface started moving. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I'll take a look." He stood, grabbed his jacket, and walked toward the front of the diner like he was stepping out for a smoke. No rush, no noise. Just gone. At the table, the others kept eating, but the rhythm had changed. Forks moved slower, eyes tracked more. The room wasn't just a diner anymore. It was a place where something had started and everyone felt it. Hollis leaned back in his chair. He didn't touch his food again. Edith wiped her hands on a napkin, careful, like she didn't want to leave a mark behind. Caleb had finished everything on his plate. Nora had eaten less, but enough to steady herself. Neither of them looked up much. "Mom," Hollis said after a moment, "how long since you had a real meal?" Edith hesitated. "Couple days," she said. Caleb shifted in his seat. "It's been longer," he muttered. She shot him a look, not angry, just. Hollis caught it. "Doesn't matter," he said. "You're eating now." Edith nodded, but her eyes dropped again. She wasn't embarrassed about the hunger. She was embarrassed about being seen. That was the part that stuck. Across the room, Marvin Pell picked up the phone behind the counter. He turned slightly away, voice low, back half hidden by the wall. Hollis noticed. He didn't move, didn't react, just watched the reflection in the glass behind the pie case, filed it. A few minutes passed. Cap came back in, same steady walk, same neutral face, but Hollis knew the difference. Cap slid into his seat and leaned in just enough. He said, under his breath, "Senior loan officer at Kern County Savings. Been there a while. Quiet guy. Too quiet." Hollis didn't look at him. "Go on." Cap glanced toward the counter. "And Pell's not just making phone calls. He's calling him." That got Hollis's attention. "Barely?" "Sure?" he asked. Cap nodded once, watched the number. He didn't even try to hide it. Hollis turned his head slightly. Marvin Pell was still on the phone, pacing now. Quick steps, short sentences. He hung up, wiped his hands again, then looked over at the table. Their eyes met for half a second. Pell looked away first. Hollis faced forward again. "That didn't take long," he murmured. Cap's jaw tightened. "This isn't new. I asked around before we got here. Couple stops back. Same story keeps coming up. Older folks, houses they've had for decades. Suddenly paperwork shows up, says they signed something they don't remember signing." "Power of attorney," Hollis said. "Yeah," Cap replied. "And once that's in play, it's easy. Accounts get drained, loans get taken out, then foreclosure hits." Hollis tapped the folded paper on the table once. Same play every time? Cap nodded. Looks like it. And the sheriff? Cap exhaled. Name's Whitlock. Been in office 15 years. Doesn't move unless it benefits him. Doss doesn't push paper like this without protection. Silence settled between them. Not empty. Heavy. Hollis looked back at Edith. She sat there with her hands folded again. Food finished. Shoulders still slightly hunched like she hadn't quite caught up to the moment yet. You signed anything recently? Hollis asked. Edith frowned. I don't think so. Think, he said gently. She pressed her lips together. There was a man, she said slowly, after my husband passed, said he was helping me sort things, bank stuff, insurance. I didn't understand most of it. He talked it fast, used words I didn't know. Her fingers tightened. I signed a few things. He said it was just to help manage accounts until I got back on my feet. Caleb let out a quiet breath. That's him? Nora leaned forward. You told us it was temporary. It was supposed to be, Edith said, voice barely holding steady. Hollis leaned in slightly. Did you keep copies? Edith shook her head. Did he leave any? She hesitated again. Then she nodded. There might be something at the house. He gave me a folder once. I didn't really look at it. Cap and Hollis exchanged a glance. That mattered. A lot. Across the room, the door opened. The bell rang. Everyone turned, just a little. A man stepped inside. Mid-50s, clean suit, polished shoes. The kind of presence that didn't belong in a place like this, but acted like it did anyway. He paused just inside the door, scanning the room. His eyes slanted on Edith, then on Hollis, and something flickered. Recognition. Gone just as fast as it came. But Hollis saw it. He always saw it. The man adjusted his jacket and walked toward the counter. Marvin Pell straightened immediately, like someone had just plugged him back into a power source. They spoke in low voices, too low to hear but not too low to read. Cap leaned closer. That's him. Hollis didn't ask how he knew, he just watched. Avery Doss didn't look nervous. That was the first thing. No hesitation, no tension in the shoulders. No quick glances to the exits. He looked comfortable, like this was routine, like this was a place he had walked into before more than once. That told Hollis more than anything else. Doss turned his head slightly, held it for a second, then smiled. Not warm, not friendly, just certain. Hollis felt something shift inside him. Not anger, not yet, something colder, more deliberate. He stood up slow. Every man at the table went still again. Doss noticed. Of course he did. He turned fully now, giving Hollis his attention. Can I help you? Doss asked, voice smooth, polite. Hollis took a step forward. No, he said quietly, but you're about to help her. Doss's smile didn't move. Sir, I think you're mistaken. This is a legal matter. Yeah, Hollis said. I figured it would be. Doss glanced at Edith again, then back at Hollis. You should be careful getting involved in things you don't understand, he said. The room tightened. Cap shifted in his seat. The sergeant-at-arms leaned forward just enough to change the balance of the room. Hollis didn't react. He just looked at Doss, really looked at him, like he was filing something deeper now. Funny thing about that, Hollis said. He stepped closer, close enough now that Doss had to tilt his head slightly to hold eye contact. I understand enough. Doss held his ground, but something small cracked at the edges, just enough. Hollis saw it, and that's when he knew. This wasn't just about paperwork. This man had done this before, more than once, and he wasn't done yet. Doss reached into his jacket, slow, deliberate, pulled out a thin envelope, set it on the counter. Then he looked at Edith. Mrs. Carmody, he said, voice calm, practiced. We should probably take care of this now. Edith froze. Caleb pushed his chair back, Nora stood up. Hollis did not yet, because something's about the envelope didn't sit right, not the timing, not the confidence, something else, something deeper. And as Doss slid the envelope across the counter, Hollis caught a glimpse of the document inside. Not just a foreclosure notice, something else. A second page. Stamped, filed, already processed. His eyes narrowed. Because whatever that paper was, it meant this was already further along than anyone had told Edith, and maybe too far along to stop the easy way. The diner didn't breathe, not when the envelope hit the counter, not when Edith's hands froze halfway to her lap. Not even when Caleb took a step forward like he might say something, then stopped himself at the last second. Doss tapped the envelope once with 2 fingers, neat, controlled. This is the final notice, he said. I wanted to handle it personally, out of respect. The word sat wrong in the room. Hollis didn't move, but his eyes dropped to the edge of the paper again. He had seen enough documents in his life to recognize structure, formatting, the way things were supposed to look, and the way they weren't. That second page inside the envelope, it wasn't just a notice, it was a transfer. Already signed, already filed. He straightened slightly. "You're a little ahead of schedule, aren't you?" Hollis said. Doss's smile tightened just a fraction. "I don't know what you mean." "Sure you do." Hollis stepped closer, just enough to close the distance without crowding him. His voice stayed low, but it carried like a weight. "Foreclosure doesn't jump straight to transfer. Not without a court date, not without notice periods." Doss's eyes flickered. There it was, gone just as fast. "You've been misinformed," Doss said smoothly. "This is all perfectly legal, yeah?" Hollis replied. "Then you won't mind if she takes a little time to look it over, maybe talk to someone." Edith swallowed hard. Her fingers twitched toward the envelope, then pulled back again like it might burn her. I don't understand it," she admitted. Doss turned to her, softer now, reassuring. "That's why I'm here, Mrs. Carmody. To make it simple, you sign, we clear the debt, and you walk away without further obligation." Clean break. Caleb's jaw tightened. Walk away from what? Her house? Doss didn't even look at him. "From the liability," he said. Nora let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "That's a nice word for stealing." Doss finally glanced her way. His expression didn't change, but something colder slipped into his eyes. "Be careful," he said. "You're speaking about a legal process you don't fully understand." Hollis stepped in before it could go further. "She understands enough," he said. "So do I." Silence stretched. Then Doss did something small. He slid the envelope closer to Edith. Not forceful, not aggressive, just inevitable, like this was how it always ended. Hollis watched her. Watched the way her hand hovered over it again, the way she looked at Caleb, then Nora, like she was asking permission, or maybe forgiveness. That hit him harder than anything else so far. Because this wasn't just about money. This was about someone being pushed to give up the last thing that made her feel like she still belonged somewhere. Hollis reached out and covered the envelope with his hand. Doss's smile vanished. "Sir," he said, voice sharper now, "you need to step away from this." Hollis didn't move his hand. "Not happening." "This is a legal matter," Doss pressed. "Interfering could create problems for you." Hollis looked up at him, really looked this time. "You already got problems," he said quietly. "You just don't know it yet." Doss's jaw tightened. Behind him, Marvin Pell shifted, nervous now. His earliest confidence had drained out of him, replaced with something closer to regret. Cap stood up, slow, then the sergeant at arms, then the rest of the table, one by one, until 11 men were on their feet again, silent and steady behind Hollis. The balance of the room shifted. Not loud, but undeniable. Doss glanced around. He didn't step back, but he stopped pushing forward. "Is this intimidation?" he asked. "No," Hollis said. "This is you running into a wall." Doss's eyes narrowed. "You don't scare me," Hollis almost smiled. "Good," he said. "Then you won't panic when things get complicated." There was a beat. Then Hollis lifted the envelope, not to hand it back, to open it. Doss moved instantly. "That's not yours." Hollis flipped it open anyway, pulled the papers out. His eyes scanned fast, efficient. The first page matched what Edith had shown him earlier. Final notice, 30 days. But the second page he slowed. "Read it again." Then a third time. Cap leaned in slightly. "What is it?" Hollis didn't answer right away, because now it made sense. Why Doss wasn't worried, why he came in person, why this felt finished. "It's already transferred," Hollis said. The words landed like a dropped weight. Edith blinked. "What?" Doss exhaled slowly, like something inevitable had finally happened. "The paperwork has been processed," he said. "The property is no longer under your ownership." Caleb stepped forward. "That's not possible." "She never signed." "She did," Doss cut in. "Months ago." Edith shook her head. "No, I didn't." "I would remember. You signed a power of attorney," Doss said, voice calm again, controlled. "That gave me authority to act on your behalf." Nora's voice cracked. "That doesn't mean you can just take everything. It means I can manage assets," Doss replied. And in this case, the assets were no longer viable. Hollis lowered the papers, looked at Edith. Her face had gone pale. Not shocked, something worse, like a slow realization finally catching up. "I remember," she whispered. "He said it was temporary, just to help me keep things organized." Doss didn't deny it, because he didn't have to. That was the truth. Just not all of it. Hollis's grip on the paper tightened slightly. "Who signed off on this?" he asked. Doss hesitated. Just for a second. "County approval," he said. "Standard procedure." "Name." Doss held his gaze, then said. Sherum shifted again, different, this time heavier, because now it wasn't just one man, it was a system. Cap exhaled under his breath. Of course it is. Hollis folded the papers carefully, too carefully, like he was putting something away he'd need later. You moved fast, Hollis said. Doss shrugged slightly. No, Hollis replied, you moved before anyone could stop you. Doss didn't answer, because that was the truth and they both knew it. Edith's hands trembled now, not from hunger, from something breaking. Then, where am I supposed to go? She asked. Doss didn't look at her when he answered. That's not my concern, that did it. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. Hollis turned his head slightly. Cap was already watching him, waiting. Hollis gave the smallest nod. Cap stepped away, pulling his phone from his pocket as he moved toward the door again. Doss noticed. What is that? He asked. Hollis looked back at him. Me giving you a chance, he said. Doss frowned. A chance for what? Hollis held his gaze. To fix this before it gets fixed for you. Doss's expression hardened. You think you can undo a file transfer? You think you can just walk in here and… Hollis cut him off. Not here, he said. He stepped closer, lowered his voice. So here's what's gonna happen. Doss didn't move, didn't blink, but something in him shifted again because now wasn't about paperwork anymore. Hollis's voice dropped even lower. Where is the rest of it? Doss frowned. What? The full file, Hollis said. Everything she signed, everything you processed. Doss shook his head. That's confidential. Hollis's eyes went colder. Not to me it isn't. Doss held his ground. Then you're going to have to find another way, he said. Hollis stared at him for a long second, then he nodded. Slow, yeah, he said quietly. I figured I might. Cap pushed the diner door open, stepped outside, and raised the phone to his ear. Hollis watched him go, then looked back at Doss. And for the first time since this started, he made a decision. Not about the diner, not about the meal, about what came next. Because whatever Doss had done, it wasn't just to Edith, and it wasn't just finished. It was part of something bigger, something organized, something that had been working. For a long time, Hollis folded the papers once more, slipped them into his coat, and said one quiet sentence that made Doss's smile disappear completely. You're not the first one, are you? The question hung between them like something alive. You're not the first one, are you? Doss didn't answer, not right away. His face stayed still, controlled, but Hollis saw it, the flicker underneath, the quick calculation, the shift from confidence to assessment. That told him enough. Doss adjusted his jacket, smoothing it down like he could smooth the moment with it. I don't know what you're implying, he said. Hollis nodded slowly. Yeah, he said. You do. Behind him the room had gone quieter than before, not just silent, watching. Every pair of eyes locked onto the two men standing at the center of something that had stopped pretending to be small. Edith sat frozen at the table. Ka stood beside her now, one hand resting on the back of her chair, not touching her, just there. Nora had moved closer too, no longer guarded in the same way. Now she looked like someone ready to fight, even if she didn't know how. Doss glanced at them, then back at Hollis. You're making a mistake, he said. This isn't some backroom deal. Everything's documented. Approved, filed. Hollis didn't raise his voice. That's the part I don't like, he said. Doss frowned. Meaning? Meaning you didn't just steal something, Hollis replied. You made it look clean. That landed harder, because it was true and both of them knew it. Doss's jaw tightened. If you're accusing me of something, you better be ready to prove it. Hollis took a step back, not retreating, resetting. Not yet, he said, but I will be. Doss let out a short breath, almost a laugh. You think you're the first person to question this? You think nobody's tried to push back before? Cap stepped back into the diner, phone still in his hand. Hollis glanced. That was enough. Cap gave a slight nod. Something had already started moving. Hollis turned back to Doss. Yeah, he said. I think they tried. The room shifted again. This time Doss felt it. You don't understand the scope of what you're stepping into, Doss said, voice lower now. Not threatening, not quite. Just honest in a way that wasn't meant to be reassuring. That right? Hollis asked. Doss leaned in slightly. This isn't just me, there it was. Not a confession. But close enough. Hollis didn't react, didn't give him anything. Just filed it. You should walk away, Doss continued. Take your friends, finish your meal, and forget you ever saw this. Behind Hollis, someone shifted. Leather creaked. Doss glanced at the line of men again, then back at Hollis. Because the people involved in this, he added, they don't like interference. Hollis tilted his head slightly. People, he repeated. Doss didn't answer. But he didn't deny it either. That was the second thing Hollis filed. Edith's voice broke the tension, soft, barely steady. Is there anything I can do? All eyes turned to her. That was new, not the question, the tone. She wasn't asking for permission anymore. She was asking for direction. Hollis looked at her. Really looked this time. And he saw it, the shift. She wasn't just scared. She was deciding whether to stand or fall. That mattered. You got anything at the house? Hollis asked. Papers, that folder you mentioned. Edith nodded slowly. I think so, in the kitchen drawer. I never threw anything away. Good, Hollis said. Doss cut in. It won't matter. Whatever she has is already processed. You can dig through old paperwork all you want. Not for you, Hollis said. Doss stopped. Hollis stepped closer again. Not everything you touch stays clean, he added. Doss's expression hardened. You don't know that. Hollis held his girl's gaze. I know people, he said. Silence. Then Hollis turned, looked at Cap. Get the truck ready. Cap didn't hesitate. Yeah. Caleb blinked. Wait, what are we doing? Hollis glanced back at him. We're going to your place. Doss laughed. Actually laughed this time. You think you're just going to drive out there and fix this, he said. You're already too late. Hollis didn't respond, because part of that might have been true, and he knew it. But being late didn't mean being finished. Not yet. Nora stepped forward. We're not, she said. Not with him here. Doss turned to her, irritation slipping through now. You don't get to decide that, he said. Hollis cut in before she could answer. Actually, he said, she does. Doss looked back at him. And you? Doss asked. You think you're in control here? Hollis met his eyes. Enough. That was all he said, but it was enough. Doss stepped back, not far, just one step. But it changed the room, because now he wasn't pushing forward anymore. He was holding position, and that told Hollis something else. He wasn't as certain as he wanted to look. Edith stood up slowly. Her legs shook, just a little, but she stayed on her feet. Caleb moved beside her. Nora stayed close on the other side. For the first time since they walked in, they didn't look like they were about to leave empty. They looked like they were holding something, even if it was just the idea of a chance. Hollis reached into his coat, pulled out the folded papers, handed them back to Edith. Keep these, he said. Don't sign anything else, not tonight. She nodded, held the papers tighter than before. Like they mattered now because they did. Doss watched the exchange, and for the first time he didn't interrupt, didn't push, didn't try to take control. That was the third thing Hollis filed. They walked toward the door, slow, deliberate. No one stopped them. Not the waitress, not the owner, not Doss. The bell rang as they stepped outside. The air felt different, cooler, quieter. Cap was already by the truck, engine running. The rest of the bikes lined up behind it, headlights cutting through the fading light. Caleb hesitated before getting in. He looked back through the diner window. Doss was still there, standing at the counter, watching, not worried, not yet. That bothered him more than anything else. Nora climbed into the back seat. Edith followed, clutching the papers. Caleb shut the door last. Hollis got behind the wheel. He didn't start driving right away, just sat there for a second, looking ahead, thinking. Then he spoke. Cap, yeah, call Ramos. Cap paused. That serious? Hollis nodded once. Yeah, Cap raised the phone again, started dialing. Caleb leaned forward slightly. Who's Ramos? Hollis didn't look back. Someone who doesn't answer to this county. That landed. Because now this wasn't just about a house. It wasn't just about Doss. It was about something bigger, something organized, something protected. The engine rumbled louder as Hollis shifted into gear. The truck rolled forward. The bikes followed, and behind them, inside that quiet diner, Avery Doss picked up his phone, turned away from the window, and said just one sentence, low and sharp, "They're moving." The Brassode stretched out ahead in long, empty lines. Hollis drove steady, one hand on the wheel, the other resting near the gear shift. No music, no small talk, just the low hum of the engine and the occasional crackle from Cap's phone as he spoke in short, quiet bursts. Edith sat beside him, clutching the folded papers in both hands. She hadn't let go of them once. In the back, Caleb leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Nora sat pressed against the door, staring out the window like she was trying to memorize every mile they passed. No one asked questions, because something had already changed. This wasn't about whether Edith would lose the house. That part was already in motion. This was about whether it could be stopped. Cap ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. "She's on it," he said. Hollis didn't look over. "How long?" "Couple hours, maybe less," Cap replied. "She was already working something in this county. Said your timing's interesting." Hollis nodded once. Good, that meant this wasn't the first crack in the system, just the one that finally showed. Behind them, the bikes kept their distance. headlights cutting through the dust, not aggressive, not showy, just there. Hollis had turned off the highway onto a narrower road. Gravel kicked up under the tires. The air shifted, cooler, quieter, heavier. Out here, Edith said soft, just a little further. Her voice had changed, still fragile, but steadier than before. Like she was holding on to something now, even if she didn't fully believe in it yet. The farmhouse came into view slowly. White paint faded to a dull gray, porch sagging slightly on one side, a barn leaning behind it like it had given up a long time ago but hadn't quite fallen. Hollis slowed the truck, stopped just short of the driveway. He didn't get out right away. Something felt off, not obvious, subtle. He scanned the house, the windows, the porch, the ground. Caleb noticed. "What is it?" he asked. Hollis didn't answer. He shifted the truck forward a few feet, then stopped again. There. Tire tracks, fresh, not theirs. Cap saw it too. Someone's been here. Edith's grip tightened on the papers. "No, I didn't tell anyone we were coming back." Hollis already knew that. That wasn't the problem. The problem was someone else did. He opened the door, stepped out. The air hit different out here. Still, watchful. The rest of the crew spread out automatically. No words, just movement. A perimeter forming without being told. Cap moved toward the barn. The sergeant at arms circled wide along the fence line. Hollis walked up the porch steps, slow, deliberate. Each board creaked under his weight. The front door was closed, but not locked. He reached for the handle, paused, and pushed it open. The smell hit first, old wood, dust, and something else. Recently disturbed air. "Stay here," he said over his shoulder. Edith didn't argue. That told him how scared she really was. Hollis stepped inside. The living room looked untouched at first glance. Same worn couch, same small table, same picture frames on the wall. But the details, they didn't line up. A drawer slightly open, a chair shifted out of place, footprints in the dust that didn't belong to someone who lived here. Cap stepped in behind him. "Clear?" "Not yet," Hollis said. They moved through the house room by room, kitchen, empty, back hallway, still, bedroom, closet doors open, not ransacked, not chaotic, clean, too clean. Like someone had taken exactly what they came for and nothing else. Hollis felt it settle in his chest. They weren't early, they were late. Cap cursed under his breath. They got here first. Hollis didn't answer. He moved into the kitchen, Edith's kitchen, say the place she had described. He went straight to it, pulled it open, empty. Not just missing a few papers, cleared, every document gone, every folder, every scrap that might have mattered. Behind him, Caleb stepped inside anyway. "Is it there?" he asked. Hollis didn't turn. No. The word landed heavy. Nora came in next, slower. She saw the drawer, understood immediately. "They knew," she said. Not a question. Hollis nodded once. "Yeah." Edith stood in the doorway now. She didn't step inside. Didn't need to. She saw it in their faces. "The folder," she whispered. "It was right there. I kept everything there." Her voice broke. Not loud, not dramatic. Just tired. Like this was the moment something inside her finally gave up. Hollis turned to face her. For a second, he didn't say anything. "Because there was no easy version of this. They came before us," he said. Edith closed her eyes. Caleb ran a hand through his hair, pacing now. "So what now?" "That was everything. That was the proof." "Not everything," Hollis said. Caleb stopped. "What else is there?" Hollis looked around at the counters, the walls, the small details most people didn't notice. "People who clean up like this," he said slowly, "they don't leave loose ends." Nora frowned. "Then why didn't they just destroy the place? Why leave anything?" Hollis met her eyes. "Because they didn't need to." That hit. Because it meant something worse. They weren't covering tracks out of fear. They were removing risk out of habit. Cap stepped closer. "So what are we missing?" Hollis didn't answer right away. He walked to the sink, looked out the window. The barn stood crooked in the distance. Something about it pulled at him. Not the building itself. The angle. The way it hit. Or maybe, the way it didn't. "Edith," he said. She looked up. "Your husband?" Hollis asked. "He keep anything outside the house?" She hesitated. There was a small office in the barn. He used it for paperwork sometimes. When the shop was still running, Cap and Hollis exchanged a look. That was it, or at least the next piece. "Stay here," Hollis said. This time Edith grabbed his sleeve. "Not hard, just enough. They're going to take it too," she said. Hollis looked down at her hand, then back at her. "Not tonight," he said. He stepped outside. The air felt tighter now. The crew had regrouped. Everyone was watching the barn. Not because they knew what was in it, because Hollis was walking toward it, and that was enough. The ground crunched under his boots as he crossed the yard. Cap stayed just behind him. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The barn door stood slightly open. Just enough. Hollis reached it, pushed it wider, the hinges groaned. Inside, it was darker, cool still, but not untouched. He stepped in, eyes adjusting. And then he's old, worn, drawers half open, and on top, one thing they hadn't taken, a photograph. Hollis stepped closer, picked it up, dusted it off with his thumb. Cap leaned in beside him. What is it? Hollis didn't answer, because what he was looking at didn't make sense. It was a picture of Edith's husband, younger, standing beside another man, arm around his shoulder, both of them smiling, like family. Cap squinted. You recognize him? Hollis didn't move, didn't blink, because he did, and the moment it clicked, everything shifted. The man in the photo was Avery Doss, and he wasn't standing there like a stranger. He was standing there like he belonged. Cap didn't speak right away. He just stared at the photo in Hollis's hand, eyes narrowing as the pieces tried to line up in real time. You sure? He asked quietly. Hollis didn't answer. He turned the photograph over. Nothing written on the back, no date, no note, just age-softened paper and a life that had meant something once. He flipped it back again, looked closer. Royce stood there, strong, younger, solid, a man who had built something with his hands, and beside him Avery Doss, not dressed like a banker, not polished, not distant, different, relaxed, grateful. That was the part that stuck, grateful. Edith, Hollis called out. She stepped into the barn slowly, as if she wasn't sure she was allowed to cross that line anymore. What is it? She asked. Hollis held the photo out. She took it with trembling hands, and the moment her eyes landed on it, something broke open. Oh, she whispered. Not shock, recognition, memory. He used to come around, she said, voice drifting somewhere else. Years ago, before everything started going wrong. Caleb stepped closer. Avery, she said. He wasn't, like he is now. He worked at the auto shop for a while. Roy hired him after. She hesitated, searching for the words. After what? Nora pressed gently. Edith swallowed. He said Roy saved his life, he said. Hollis felt it settle deep. The barn went still. There it was, the piece that didn't fit before. Now it did. Cap exhaled slowly. You're kidding me. Edith shook her head. He showed up one day. Said his car broke down out on the highway. Roy fixed it. Didn't charge him. Then a few weeks later he came back, said he needed work. Roy gave him a chance. She looked at the photo again. He stayed for a while, learned the business, ate at our table, called Roy sir like he meant it. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the paper. I trusted him, she said, barely audible. Hollis watched her, didn't interrupt, because this wasn't just information. This was the wound. After Roy passed, Edith continued. He came back again. Said he wanted to help, said he owed Roy, said he'd make sure I didn't get taken advantage of. Caleb let out a short, bitter laugh, and instead, yeah, Cap muttered. Instead he learned the system. Hollis took the photo back slowly, studied Doss's face again, not the man from the diner, the man from before, and something clicked deeper. This wasn't random, Hollis said. Cap shook his head. No, he didn't just find her name in a file. Hollis nodded. He knew exactly who she was, what she had, what she didn't understand. Edith's voice cracked. Why would he do that? No one answered right away because there wasn't a clean answer. There was only the truth. Because he could, Nora said quietly. That landed. Hollis slid the photo into his coat, carefully, like it mattered, because now it did, more than any missing paperwork. Cap looked around the barn again. If they cleared the house, they knew about this place too. Yeah, Hollis said. But they missed this, Cap added. Hollis nodded. Not a mistake, he said. Cap frowned. What do you mean? Hollis glanced toward the open door, toward the house, the road beyond. They weren't looking for memories, he said. They were looking for risk. Cap thought about that, then nodded slowly. Paper, he said. Exactly. Hollis turned back toward the desk, pulled open one of the drawers. Empty. Another. Same. But then the bottom drawer stuck, just a little. Hollis crouched down, ran his fingers along the edge. Dust had settled differently here, like it had been opened recently, but not fully. He pulled harder. The drawer slid open halfway, then stopped. Something's behind it, he said. Cap moved in. They both saw it. A false back, thin wood panel, slightly off alignment. Careful work, not something you'd notice unless you knew to look. Hollis tapped it once. Solid, he pressed along the edge. It shifted. Just enough. Cap let out a low whistle. Well, I'll be damned. Hollis slid the panel aside. Inside, a stack, not large, but deliberate. Documents. Envelopes. A small ledger, untouched. Cap leaned in. That's not nothing. No, Hollis said. out carefully as on the desk. He pulled the stack closer now. Fear still there, but something else too. Hope. Hollis opened the first envelope, old bank statements. Second one, copies, signed documents, power of attorney forms, but different from the ones Doss had shown. Earlier versions, not filed. Cap's voice, drafts. Hollis nodded. Or backups, he said. He flipped through them faster now, then stopped. The ledger, small handwritten, names, dates, amount. Cap leaned closer. You seeing this? Hollis didn't answer, because he was reading line by line, and every line told the same story. Different names, same process, same outcome. This isn't just her, Cap said. No, Hollis replied quietly. It never was. Edith covered her mouth. Oh my God, Nora stepped back, shaking her head. How many people? Hollis flipped to the last page, counted quickly, then looked up. More than we thought. Cap exhaled hard. That's enough to bury him. Hollis didn't look convinced, he said. Cap frowned. What do you mean, maybe? Hollis tapped the ledger once, said. Names and numbers aren't enough, he said. Not without context, not without verification. We've got copies, we've got patterns, we've got motive. Yeah, Hollis said. But we don't have the piece that ties it to him clean. Silence. Then Nora spoke. What about the sheriff? Hollis looked at her. What about him? You said Ursula, she continued. This wasn't just Doss. If the sheriff signed off on it, that's leverage, Cap said. Hollis nodded slowly. Or a shield, he added, because that was the problem. If Whitlock was involved, this wasn't just fraud. It was protected, institutional, harder to break. Edith's voice came again, softer. Now there was something else, she said. Hollis has turned to her. What? She hesitated, thinking, reaching back. Last time Avery came to the house, she said before the foreclosure notice, he brought a folder, bigger than the others. Cap looked up. Where is it? Edith shook her head. He didn't leave it, he just showed me a page. What page? She closed her eyes, trying to see it again. There was a seal, she said slowly, county seal, and a signature. Not his, someone else's. Hollis felt it lock into place. That's Whitlock, he said. Edith nodded faintly. And there was something else. A stamp, red ink. I remember because it scared me. What kind of stamp? Cap asked. Edith opened her eyes, looked at Hollis, and for the first time there was real fear in them. It said immediate possession. The barn went silent. Hollis didn't move, because that wasn't standard, not for foreclosure, not without a court order, not without process. Cap swore under his breath. They're skipping steps. No, Hollis said. He looked down at the ledger, then back at Edith. They're rewriting them. Outside, an engine roared. Close, too close. Every head turned toward the door. Hollis stood up fast, stepped out of the barn. A truck had pulled up at the edge of the property, not one of theirs. Dust still settling around it, driver's door opening. And as the man stepped out, Hollis recognized him immediately. Not Doss, worse, Sheriff Whitlock. And he wasn't alone. The gravel crunched under heavy boots. Sheriff Whitlock didn't rush. He stepped out of the truck like he owned the ground beneath him, one hand resting near his belt, the other adjusting the brim of his hat as he took in the scene. Two deputies followed behind him, slower, less certain, but still present. That was the first thing Hollis noticed, not confidence, control. Whitlock didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need to posture. The badge did that for him. Well now, the sheriff said, glancing between the bikes, the barn, and the men standing in quiet formation. Looks like we've got ourselves a gathering. No one answered. Hollis stepped forward just enough to meet him halfway between the porch and the barn. Whitlock's eyes settled on him, measured, curious. Then something like recognition flickered. You Hollis? Whitlock asked. Hollis didn't nod, didn't confirm. He just held the man's gaze. Whitlock smiled slightly. I heard you were in town. Seems like you hear a lot, Hollis replied. Whitlock chuckled, but there was no humor in it. Comes with the job, he said. Then his tone shifted just a little. Now, I'm going to need everyone to step away from the property. The words were calm, practiced, legal, but they landed like a line drawn in the dirt. Edith stepped out onto the porch behind Hollis. This is my house, she said, voice shaking but steady enough to carry. Whitlock didn't look at her right away. That was deliberate. He let the silence stretch, let her voice sit there without acknowledgement, like it didn't carry weight. Then finally he turned. Mom, he said, almost polite. According to county records, it's not. That hit harder than anything else so far. Not because it was new, because it was official. Caleb moved beside Edith. You don't get to just show up and say that. Whitlock raised an eyebrow. Actually, I do. Nora stepped forward too, but Hollis lifted a hand slightly, not to stop them, to steady the moment. Whitlock's gaze shifted back to Hollis. I don't know what you think you're doing here, he said, but this situation's already been handled. You're interfering with an active legal transfer. Hollis didn't react to the words. He reacted to the timing. Too fast. Too coordinated. DOS. Whitlock shows up. That wasn't coincidence. That was alignment. Funny, Hollis said. Didn't see any court order. Whitlock's smile thinned. You a lawyer now? No, Hollis said. Just know how things are supposed to work. Whitlock took a step closer. Subtle. Pressure. Then you also know when to mind your business, he said. Behind Hollis, leather shifted. Boots adjusted. No one moved forward. But no one stepped back either. Whitlock noticed that. Of course he did. His eyes flicked briefly across the line of men, measuring, then back to Hollis. You're making this harder than it needs to be, he said. Hollis didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat, pulled out the small ledger, held it up. Whitlock's expression didn't change. But one of the deputies behind him shifted. That was enough. What's that? Whitlock asked. Hollis didn't hand it over. Something you might recognize, he said. Whitlock's eyes flicked down, then back up. I don't have time for games, he replied. Hollis took a step closer, not aggressive, but firm. 11 names, he said quietly. 11 properties, same pattern, same process, same result. Whitlock didn't respond, but the silence stretched a little longer this time. And your signature on every final approval, Hollis added. That landed, not loud, but deep. One of the deputies looked at the sheriff now. Just enough to check. Whitlock felt it. His jaw tightened for the first time. You're out of your depth, he said. Maybe, Hollis replied, but I don't think so. Whitlock exhaled slowly, resetting, regaining control. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You're going to hand me whatever you took from that barn, then you're going to get back on your bikes and leave this county. Hollis didn't move, didn't blink. Or what, he asked. Whitlock's voice dropped, not louder, sharper. Or I make it official. That word again, official, meaning arrests, charges, trouble that didn't go away. Behind Hollis, Cap stepped forward slightly, just enough to be heard. She's not alone, he said. Whitlock looked at him. Doesn't matter, he replied. That was the mistake, small but real. Because it told Hollis exactly how far Whitlock thought his authority reached. Far enough to ignore the pattern, far enough to ignore the people, far enough to believe no one would push back. Hollis looked past him, down the road. Listening. Waiting, Whitlock noticed the glance. What are you looking for, he asked. Hollis didn't answer because right then in the distance another set of headlights appeared, then another and another. Not fast, not urgent, steady, controlled. Whitlock turned just slightly, trying not to show it mattered, but it did. The first car came into view. State plates, then the second, then the third. They rolled in slow, deliberate tires crunching over gravel like they had all the time in the world. Cap let out a quiet breath. About time, he murmured. Whitlock's shoulders tightened, just enough, not panic, but something close. The cars stopped at the edge of the property. Doors opened, figures stepped out. Not local, not familiar, and not under Whitlock's control. Hollis finally spoke. You said I was out of my depth, he said. Whitlock didn't answer because now the balance had shifted. Not completely, not yet, but enough. One of the new arrivals started walking toward them, a woman, mid-30s, sharp eyes, folder in hand. Whitlock watched her approach, didn't move to meet her, didn't greet her. That said everything. Hollis stepped back half a pace, gave her room because this part wasn't his anymore. Not entirely. The woman stopped between them, looked at Whitlock, then at Hollis, then at the ledger in his hand. You must be Hollis, she said. He nodded once. She turned to Whitlock. Sheriff, she said calmly, we need to talk. Whitlock held her gaze, didn't smile, didn't soften. What about, he asked. The woman opened her folder, pulled out a document, held it where he could see. About 11 properties, she said, and why they all seemed to end the same way. Whitlock didn't take the paper, didn't even look down at it, because something else had just hit him. Something he couldn't ignore. He turned his head slightly, toward the barn, toward Edith, toward the people standing behind Hollis, and for the first time he wasn't in control of how this was going to end. But he still had one move left. He reached for his radio, and said one quiet sentence that made the entire yard go still. Unit 2, move in. The charges didn't happen all at once. They came in layers. First, the state investigator secured the ledger. Then came the calls, the records, the quiet confirmations that what Hollis had found in that barn wasn't just a pattern, It was proof. Not complete on its own, but enough to open doors that had been closed for years. Within days, Avery Doss stopped answering his phone. Within a week, he was sitting across from two investigators in a room that didn't offer him the comfort of polished words or practiced calm. The copies, the earlier drafts, the ledger entries, they lined up just enough to force him into a corner he hadn't planned for. And when they showed him the recording from the diner, his voice, his timing, the way he had tried to rush Edith into signing, something in him broke. Not loudly, but enough. He talked, not out of remorse, out of survival. He named accounts, he explained the process. He described how the system worked, how signatures were pushed through, how properties were flagged early and moved quietly before anyone could fight back. And when they asked about Whitlock, he hesitated. Then he nodded. That was enough. Sheriff Burl Whitlock didn't get arrested in front of cameras. He didn't fight, didn't shout. He resigned first. Then came the formal charges: abuse of authority, fraud, conspiracy. The kind of words that stripped a man faster than any headline ever could. The county shifted after that, quietly, like something had been loosened. One by one, the other properties in the ledger were reviewed. Some took longer than others, some required hearings, signatures, corrections that didn't come easily. But they came, and with them, houses returned, names cleared. People who had been told they didn't belong anywhere anymore, suddenly standing on their own front steps again. No press, no spectacle. Just quiet corrections to something that should never have happened. Edith's case moved faster. The foreclosure was suspended first, then overturned. The transfer voided under review. The deed restored, officially, legally, permanently. The day the papers came through, she didn't celebrate. She didn't cry. Not at first. She just stood in her kitchen holding the document in both hands, reading the same line over and over like it might disappear if she blinked. Caleb leaned against the doorway watching her. Nora stood beside him, arms crossed, not guarded anymore, just present. "You okay?" Caleb asked. Edith nodded, then shook her head, then nodded again. "I think so," she said, and for the first time she believed it. The house changed after that, not all at once, but piece by piece. The porch clicked first. One of Hollis's men had come back a few days, after everything settled, tools in hand, no questions asked. The sagging boards were replaced. The railing straightened. It wasn't perfect, but it was solid. The barn came next. Caleb took that on himself, not because he had to, because he wanted to. He cleaned it out slowly, repaired what he could, left the rest as it was. Nora helped when she felt like it, arguing more than she worked, but staying longer each time. Edith didn't tell them what to do, she just watched. That was enough. Hollis didn't come back right away. He had other roads, other stops, but a few weeks later he showed up. No warning, no call, just the low sound of an engine rolling up the gravel driveway as the sun dipped low behind the hills. Edith was on the porch when he arrived. She didn't stand, didn't rush. She just watched him walk up the steps like she had known, somehow, that he would. "You took your time," she said. Hollis shrugged slightly. "Had to make sure things stuck." She nodded. They sat in silence for a while. The kind that didn't need filling. The air was different now. Not heavy, not tense, just still. After a while Edith spoke. "I never thanked you," she said. Hollis looked out toward the yard. "You did," he replied. She shook her head. "No, not properly." He turned his cup slightly in his hands, thinking. "You sat down at my table," he said. That was enough. Edith studied him. "You could walked away," she said. "Most people would have." Hollis didn't answer right away. His eyes drifted past the barn, past the fence line, somewhere further back. "There was a time," he said slowly. "Someone didn't walk away from me." Edith waited. He didn't look at her. "My mom." He 3 kids. Not much else. We got by how we could. One day, some guy we didn't know stopped at a place like that diner. Paid for a meal. Didn't say a word. Didn't ask for anything. He paused, just left. Edith felt something tighten in her chest. "I was 7, Hollis added. Didn't understand it then. Took me a long time to figure out what it meant." She nodded slowly. "And now?" she asked. Hollis finally looked at her. "Now I try to be that man," he said. Edith smiled. "Not wide, not perfect, but real." "Did more than that," she said. Hollis shook his head. "Not always," he replied. "Just this time." The light faded slowly across the yard. Inside, Caleb moved through the kitchen, quieter than he used to be. Nora followed, carrying a small box of tools, setting them down near the door without being told. Life, not fixed, not perfect, but moving. Edith stood up, walked to the edge of the porch. Her land, not borrowed, not taken hers. She rested her hand against the railing, steady. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she had to ask permission to be there. Behind her, Hollis stood, set his cup down. He didn't say goodbye, didn't need to. He walked down the steps, across the gravel and back to his truck. The engine turned over. The sound carried across the quiet. Edith didn't turn right away. She just stood there, feeling it settle. Then slowly she looked back, watched him drive off. Not like something leaving, like something that had done what it came to do, and left the rest behind. If you've ever seen someone get their life back piece by piece, you know it doesn't happen all at once. Tell me, what would you have done if you were in his place?